Well, hello and welcome to Facebook Live with Dr. Brie. I am talking today about supporting sensitive systems. So this is a near and dear to my functional medicine and biochemistry love. This is a topic I find super fascinating and has really evolved over time in my understanding of genetics from a functional medicine, holistic medicine, and family medicine perspective. I know that this is a big topic, and I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible for purposes of this presentation. Sorry, I don't get to actually have my face on here. I don't know how to show a slideshow and also see you folks at the same time, so I'll get there. But just for purposes of disclosure, I want you to understand we're going to be talking about genetics today, just one in particular, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. And that's an MTHFR genetic mutation that can, have impact on people with sensitivity. So I want to make sure that you can understand, hold on, that you can see me. Oh, I'm alive. Yes, perfect. Yep, it's looking good. It looks like you can see my slides, so we're off to a good start there. I want you to understand that I'm not your doctor, and I'm not trying to explain all of the sensitive folks in the world. And I'm just trying to put a big lay of the land on how to support and understand sensitivities from a genetic perspective and what you can do if you do have a sensitive system to kind of support yourself in times of stress. So the first thing is to really understand sensitivity. I really like to use Dr. Elaine Aron's construct about being a highly sensitive person. There's a self-test on her website. And, for many years in practicing alternative medicine, my patients would say, I'm highly sensitive. And I never really understood what it was until I met this construct by Dr. Aron. But this is a trait of people. 20 to 30% of the population will have sensitivity to stimuli in the external and internal environment. And I noticed that folks who are highly sensitive are also often highly sensitive to medications, supplements, environmental pollutants, chemicals, smells, and they tend to find themselves in the setting of holistic and alternative medicine more often because nothing is quote unquote wrong from a Western medical perspective, but highly sensitive systems are highly attuned to their complex inner life and experiences, and so they come often to the doctor noticing little pieces of their body and their nuances of their health that are often told everything's fine, and then they turn to alternative medicine. So understanding the construct of highly sensitive trait might be helpful to you. So I put this out there as a resource. I have found that in our population and direct osteopathic, that people who are highly sensitive and score on the self-test quiz between 13 and higher will often have some sort of genetic uniqueness, as I like to call it. There's also sensitivity along the autistic spectrum disorder. We understand this in a lot of different rainbows of fruit flavors, as I like to say now. This is from the updated definition of the DSM-5. The American Academy of Family Physicians put this out. It was a reference to the American Academy of Pediatrics that tried to more broadly define or specifically actually define autism spectrum disorder over the last couple of years. I'm not sure this is super helpful lens, but just want you to know that sensitivity can look like a lot of things, and highly sensitive trait and autism spectrum they're different things, right? And then we have ADHD, which overlaps with that as well. And so we understand, things that come into associations with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, highly sensitive folks, there's a lot of overlapping Venn diagram here. And my understanding in my holistic lens is that there are unique contributions to each of this kind of presentations of how people show up in the world and what they're sensitive to. And if we can understand what that recipe is behind that uniqueness, we can figure out how to support that, right? So we used to call this the root cause, right? What is the root cause? Now, something like autism or being highly sensitive is far too complex to find one single root cause. But there have been studies looking at and linking the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme uniqueness to autism spectrum disorders. Here's a couple of links that you can follow. And I often refer to Dr. Ben Lynch. He's a fabulous naturopath that wrote the book Dirty Genes, and he has a great website, MTHFR.net, that has a compilation of research that's excellent, probably the best compilation of research on the internet with regard to this genetic uniqueness. Unfortunately, after COVID, shortly thereafter, this website has not been actively updated in some time, but if you want to look back at a good resource, this is one of the resources I recommend. I always say, if you're on the website that says, MTHFR is the cause of everything in my life.com, it's probably not the right website. Everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. So what is it that is this genetic uniqueness? This genetics, as we know, are complex, right? There's how you are genetically, and then there are these single nucleotide polymorphisms, we call them SNPs, that can have inducible variations on certain biochemical processes of your body, okay? And then that can show up as your phenotype, which is how you are today, right? So there's how you are genetically, there's environmental inputs from inside your body, stress hormones like cortisol, from outside your body, environmental toxicity, that kind of thing, even pollution, living in a city can impact these genetics. And then how it shows up, right, is what it feels like and what it looks like in your body, which can be how symptoms are, manifested, right? So this genetic, the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme, works in many complex and fun ways. So I'm going to bring up the biochemistry because it just wouldn't be life without it. And this is courtesy of Genova Diagnostics. So I just want to kind of show you like the point of this enzyme so you can understand a little bit more about how it might impact sensitivity, and then we can understand how to support it, okay? So this is from a really cool methylation test that Genova does. You can see there's so many enzymes. Every box, every blue box here is around an enzyme. So there are lots of enzymes that impact methylation, not just this one over here, the MTHFR methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme right here. That's not the only one that is impactful, but it's worth talking about because it's a big player. So the point of this enzyme is to take the tetrahydrofolate that you eat in your diet, the naturally occurring folates that are in green leafy vegetables and bright fruits and vegetables, bright colors, is to take that folate and to get a methyl group off of it. So this is that folate here. We want to get a methyl group off of it. This methyl group you'll see over here, the whole point of all this fancy biochemistry is to kick off this methyl group. And what I always tell patients is this methyl group tags things for trash. So if your body is trying to get rid of an estrogen molecule, it breaks it down, estradiol, into a couple different pathways. And one of the last steps it does is it tags that broken down estrogen with a methyl group, and then your kidney says, oh, that one is done. We can excrete it. We'll pee it out, right? Same thing, the liver picks up some of these. The methyl group basically says that is trash. And then your body takes out the trash, you pee it out, you poop it out, and that's how your body excretes things or gets rid of toxins, right? So this methylation process is very important to detoxification and energy production, okay? So if you're not kicking this methyl group off efficiently, then you're not taking out the trash very efficiently in your body. And this is how it sometimes feels. I tell people it's like when your house, accumulates all the recycling or the trash, right? And it's not that you are not able to, get rid of some of this, but it gets more gummed up. This whole machinery gets gummed up in people who have genetic uniqueness in this enzyme. Because again, the point of this enzyme is to take a methyl group here that oxidizes with this B12. That's why folate and B12 are involved in this genetic uniqueness. That moves this whole pathway around, And the whole point of this pathway is to kick off a methyl group so that people are able to detoxify whatever it is. It could be neurotransmitters, dopamine, estrogen, etc. Okay? This whole pathway is influenced by detoxification and energy production. Okay, so if you don't have a normal gene here, you can have chronic fatigue that is unexplained. You can have problems with detoxification, and you can have problems getting rid of some of your stress hormones. One of the ways that we see this in labs show up is a high homocysteine. So when this process isn't efficient, one of the things we'll see in blood work with a holistic doctor is an elevated homocysteine level. And that can be an indirect marker of this lovely word that is complex called inflammation, okay? So this is how the biochemistry works. And if we understand, our society, right? This is, again, courtesy of Genova Diagnostics. And this just gives you an overview of the fact that European descendant Americans, 44% are going to have one abnormal copy of this gene. I like to call it genetic uniqueness, but we can also call it a genetic mutation. And the homozygous, 2 abnormal copies of the MTHFR gene is about 9%. So total, that's more than 50%. Only 47% of European descendant Americans are going to have 2 normal copies. And if we look at East Asian, we're going to see even fewer of this kind of normal variant, whereas African American descendant, we have 81%, so pretty normal genetics there. Southeast Asian, more predominantly, I hate to use the word normal, but typical MTHFR genes, right? So these groups, anybody with 1 abnormal copy of this one, the C677T, or 2 abnormal copies, they're going to have more difficulty with detoxification. There is another version, the A1298 version of the MTHFR gene, and that one is not as well understood, and it's not as well studied or researched, and its impact, whether you have 1 or 2 abnormal copies, is not as well clinically associated with certain disease states. And so that's the one that I'm going to leave off of today's conversation. But if you have this version, this C677T version, 1 or 2 abnormal copies can definitely lead to an accumulation of or more difficulty detoxifying and methylating and taking out the trash, right? So when that happens, when people are genetically sensitive in this way, it can show up as being highly sensitive. It can show up as being chemically sensitive, environmentally sensitive. It can be autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, fibromyalgia, a lot of things that kind of fall into that big bucket of Western medicine says, meh, it's just how it is, nothing much to do about it. Alternative medicine says, maybe there is a role here for what creates your sensitivity. Either way, sensitivity can be hard, especially in times like now where in 2025 there are seasons of intense smoke in the air in the summers in some areas with the wildfires. There can be a lot of pollution that shows up especially if you live in a city. We can have xenoestrogens in our environment. We have microplastics. We have a lot of environmental inputs that we have no control over. And then we have stress. We have physical stress and emotional stress. And then we have the stress of something simple like getting sick, getting COVID, getting the measles, right? So when we talk about vaccination and sensitivity, a lot of people who have highly sensitive systems get nervous about vaccination, and they get nervous about illness, and they get nervous about these inputs from outside and try to live as clean of lifestyles as possible. So, life is not without stress. You can live in a bubble, and even though I moved to the middle of the countryside, I still have stress just like everyone else, right? You can have a beautiful environment and you can do everything you can to manage that environment, but stress is still a part of the human experience. So supporting your body in times of stress, whether it's emotional stress or physical stress, or whether you're choosing to, get a vaccination, but you're a sensitive system, you can do things that can support that system before and after and during stressful times. So, one of the things you can do is know your genetics. You can find a doctor who will check them for you. There's a lot of places that now do direct-to-consumer tests. I know Genova does direct-to-consumer tests, and some of the tests they do will check your genetics. You can find an integrative or holistic doctor like myself at Direct Osteopathic, and our team here, Kat and Martina, they're all here to learn how to support sensitive systems too. That's why they're interested in this unique approach. But you can do it on your own to some degree too. So if you think or know that you're a sensitive soul in this stressful world in 2025, whether you're up against an acute stress, an illness, or a chronic stress from internal or external to your world, these are some things you can do. You can focus on methylated folate. Methylfolate is already activated, right? So if you take methylfolate, you're going to make this whole process easier for you because it's already activated. Your body doesn't have to go through that process. And if you don't know your genetics, it's still safe to do methylated folate. It comes in this fancy version, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, or 5-MTHF on the back of a supplement label. Some of them will also say methylfolate. And that is safer for the majority of people to take versus folic acid, which is a common additive to many multivitamins. So if your multivitamin on the back says folic acid and you're a sensitive soul, probably best to pitch it and get one that has methylfolate. I know over the counter, the kids' Smarty Pants, for example, they have methylated folates in there. Renzos, Renzos, is another great supplement company that makes supplements for kids, specifically that are sensitive. They have a picky eater version, and that's a good company that's using quality ingredients like the methylated folate and the methylated B12s. So again, this methylated B12 is going to be pre-activated, making it easier for your body to do the biochemistry it needs to detoxify and to produce energy. So if you're going to get B12 added to your diet, supplement, or an injection, if you're a sensitive soul, you're going to want to go with the methylated methylcobalamin instead of a cyanocobalamin version. And then I always like to think about antioxidants as a pyramid. And the base of the pyramid is your diet. Leafy greens, bright colored fruits and vegetables. This is where the blueberries come in, right? This is where the drinking lots of water, exercising, sleeping, some of the lifestyle changes that are easy to gloss over are the basis of having an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Antioxidants is a fancy word for basically, how do we decrease inflammation? How do we support these natural processes that your body knows how to do, but sometimes needs support on? So if you feel like you need to take out the trash more efficiently than a baseline diet can do for you, you can add supplements in the next layer. The cheapest layer is things like N-acetylcysteine and vitamin C, not overdoing it on these doses, obviously. But just, this is a reasonable first approach. More expensive in the world of nutraceuticals because these three are harder to get in the right forms that your body can absorb and use, as coenzyme Q10, alpha lipoic acid, and turmeric. Turmeric is unique in all of these options and that it's the most anti-inflammatory. It's a potent anti-inflammatory. It's kind of like an herbal ibuprofen, but there can be side effects to all of these nutraceuticals, and so it's best to use them under guidance of a naturopath or a holistic medicine doctor who has experience with these, because curcumin, especially because it is so potent, can be contraindicated in some circumstances. Like if you have a history of, kidney stones, you have to be a little cautious, or if you're using it in conjunction with other anti-inflammatories, you have to be a little cautious. So these are a little more potent, probably need a little more supervision. And glutathione is your biggest, most potent antioxidant. You see it here at the end of the line. This sample report, this person is low on your glutathione. You can test your levels with some advanced testing, courtesy of companies like Genova Diagnostics. But glutathione is the most complex to absorb over the counter. So if you see something at, Whole Foods that says it has glutathione in there, it's a little suspicious because there's only certain versions of bioavailable glutathione in a capsule form. Only S-acetyl-L-glutathione is really bioavailable that way, and it's quite expensive when you find it. So I like people to focus on, the things you can do day to day, and then get supervision on these larger antioxidant supports if you need them. Because even somebody who has 2 copies of the MTHFR gene, they may need a little bit of supervision taking methylated B vitamins, because some folks are sensitive even to taking methylated B vitamins because they're that sensitive on all the things. So if you, again, are up against a stressful situation, one's coming, right? Like you're planning on maybe getting a vaccination, you're a sensitive soul and you've had reactions before, you can support yourself with these easy options before, during, and after that stressful event, if you can see it coming. But if you find yourself in the throes of it and you can't get over the cold and it's hanging on and your body can't seem to get back on track and you're just dragging, you can also add these in during those times as well. Again, none of these treatment options are harmful for people without this genetic uniqueness, but certainly I have found many people who are genetically sensitive will have some sort of genetic uniqueness like MTHFR and sometimes others, and there are nutritional ways to get you back on track. So I hope that helps. I know it's been an interesting year, and I hope this helps answer some of those high-level questions that people have and the reason why they seek out care like ours. All right, have a great day.